Bhavna from India
Hi,
today. How are you?
good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for asking. I have to firstly congratulate you. The Penguin already has so much of love, and people are really waiting for the show to come.
No, I'm so
But
excited. Thank you.
but I wanted to understand at what point while directing the Batman did you realize that a spin-off on the Penguin would be a great idea?
You know, I was excited about the idea of doing an HBO show off of the movie very early on. Actually, first thought about it while I was writing. And at that point, they didn't have the kind of relationship with HBO that could happen. And then as as we got deeper into it and as I started making the movie, that became a possibility. And so we started talking to Casey Bloys and Sarah Aubrey at HBO and Max about what we might do. And there was a moment, we were really going in an exploration, and there was a moment where Casey said, he goes, I just want to make sure that you're not saving like the really, really marquee characters for the movies, that you want to find a way to do that in a series. And I said, well, I'll tell you, actually, I had this idea for where we would take the Penguin, and it's this kind of like in the moment after the movie where there's this power void, and that this guy who's been underestimated and is sort of seen as kind of a joke, who we know becomes the kingpin because that's the story of the Penguin, that he's going to grab for power, and that it would be this kind of almost like a Scarface kind of story, like an American gangster story. And he was like, great, that's the show, we'll do that. And so that's really where it came from. And then we went out and looked for a writer who could do that. And we found Lauren, and I showed her I hadn't finished the movie. So I started showing her scenes of Colin, and I started showing her deleted scenes, and we just started talking, and she started building a story based on, I said that the story had to begin a week after the movie and had to lead into the next movie and had to focus on this rise to power in a way that would illuminate who Oz was. And she really dug in and told this beautiful story. And that's where it began.
Beautiful and dark, I would say, and I'm really looking forward to that. But every time a series is labeled a certain, when it's given an R rating or a TVMA rating in this case, I want to understand, you're taking a risk, right? Because it limits the audience. What gives you that conviction to okay, go ahead with this dark story, knowing that the audience, there will be enough audience to love and understand where this is coming from?
You know, I think the reasons, I mean, certainly it's true that, and that's actually true because, I have a young son, and he's still yet to see the Batman, even though that's a PG-13 movie. We're actually talking about finally, he's finally 13, and he's going to watch the movie, and we're really excited about it. But that was true also, even just from the approach of the Batman. And what was exciting to me was the idea of going into do something that went further in an HBO kind of way. And the one thing I will say, and why it was so appealing to them, is that while in a certain way you could say, well, that might limit the audience, the truth is the audience for HBO is an audience for these kinds of stories. They do dark crime stories. I mean, whether it's like Oz or The Sopranos or True Detective, like it actually is in the sweet spot of exactly what they have always done really, really well. So I think we just felt if we could do something that was really compelling, that would had such quality. I mean, with Colin Farrell involved, you knew it was going to be something special, that we had the chance that while there were certain audience who wouldn't be able to come to it, that there was a chance to bring actually people who wouldn't normally come to see a comic book story because of these kind of dark crime stories that are sort of a key sort of aspect of what HBO has done so successfully. So to us, it was an incredible opportunity, and we didn't see it as limiting it so much as freeing. It felt like, oh, now we can really dig into the darkness of the story, like a Scarface, in a way that is not bound by the sort of rules of what you might have to do with the PG-13 movie.
Absolutely. But like you mentioned, I don't know if you've gone through comments on the trailer, but a lot of people are saying this seems like Sopranos meeting Gotham. And like there are so many theories that people already have about how this show is going to be like. Did you
Sure.
have a chance to go through it? And what do you want to say, these comparisons that are being made?
I'm not surprised because it's HBO. I mean, I would say that it's not really so much The Sopranos as it is in the tradition of the way that Sopranos was, of these sort of gangster stories where you focus on a character like this who's trying to fill some kind of internal void by reaching for the dark American dream. And to me, that is what our Gotham is sort of about, is that this idea of this place of such opportunity, but darkness and desperation, and the idea of someone coming into that and sort of really trying to fill some hole in them that can never be filled. What drives somebody to this level of ambition that they'd be willing to do anything to get it?
Yeah.
And so in that way, it shares the DNA of something like The Sopranos, but it really is in the tradition of really Warner Brothers gangster movies, like
Yeah.
Appalling, Scarface. So that's exciting though that people see that, and I think that people hopefully will be really excited about what we've done. I mean, Colin, I have to say, is so extraordinary in the show, and I think it's going to be really exciting for people to see. It's one of those things where when you think about it for the first 10 minutes that's Colin Farrell, that's this weird magic trick that goes away where you're just like, this is this character, this person, this actor, this figure that I've never seen before, and he is just Oz. That's who he is, and I'm really excited for that to be shared with the world.
I think people are already excited. They
Yeah.
cannot really recognize Colin in the trailer, to be very honest, me included. A huge congratulations on the Penguin. I think it's a wonderful concept. The idea of doing a spin-off on the Penguin was great, but tell me, it was not an easy one. I'm sure it comes with its own challenges. Can you tell me what was the biggest challenge that you had to sort of overcome while doing this?
Well, to me as a storyteller, just to make sure that the story was rich and had a lot of, characters within it that you would want to watch. Obviously, it's a very big show, and I want to honor the comic books that have come before, but also tell a very unique, different story. To just make sure that it's not something that feels like you've seen it before, but that you can't predict it, and it's interesting and engaging in its own right. So really that was the primary goal. And even though the show was complicated to make, mostly because Colin's wearing a prosthetic the whole time, it was really fun.
Yeah, and also the fact I read one of your interviews where you mentioned that you ensured that there was a lot of complex women around Penguin to make it a more compelling story. But tell me, how did you sort of like build on? I mean, there's enough material and resource material available for the characters like the Hangman and everything and others, right? But was it challenging to sort of balance what the source material, but also put a bit of what you want to build those characters? Because there's a lot of backstory happening.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think I was lucky in that this is what Matt did in the film is he tried to honor the comics, but not literally adapt them. And I took that as well. So there's no literal adaptation of any comic book in our show. So instead, it really is a lot of original storytelling with some characters that but even some of the characters that are very different than the way that you've maybe read them or seen them depicted before. So, Oz came from the Batman film, and he's a mobster, and he's very grounded, and there's nothing about him that is, fantastical in that way. And so taking inspiration from that, it was really about making the world feel organic and like it could be any city in the world in that regard as well, and making sure that the characters feel relatable and that you empathize with them.
Yeah, but I know it could be a spoiler, but how are you making sure that this is connected? We know how it is connected to the Batman film, but it is also going to lead on to the second film that will come in 2026. Was it sort of difficult to have that connect because both of them are films, but this is a series, and yet there will be a connect, a flow that is supposed to happen.
Yeah, no, I mean, we always were intended to be the bridge between the two films. So, we take place a week after the first film. And then after that, the second film, we lead into that. And so that is a very unique thing to have a show that really is that bridge between the two. Yeah. What helped is just I knew where I needed to end Oz emotionally. And really the goal was within our show to make our show as interesting and dynamic and to have our characters inform much of the second film, but really like have a psychological study of Oz. Who is this man? What does he want? What is he afraid of? What makes him tick? And if you felt like you could learn about him and understand him, I think it'll hopefully make the second film even more interesting that he's in.
A lot of people are commenting that Oz, the Penguin is already their favorite villain in DC Universe. I want to understand what made you choose Penguin as a character to have the spin-off on, because I mean there are so many other characters as well, and no one really thought that a Penguin could have a spin-off. What made you choose that character for a spin-off?
Well, HBO approached me with the idea that I think, Colin on set originated in a way. He talked to Matt and Dylan Clark, the producer on that set, and said, I really want to tell more. I want to dig deeper into this man. He had so few scenes in the film. So that really inspired it. To me, I was excited because I grew up reading comic books and, in a lot of ways, like Danny DeVito's Penguin was the one that I grew up with, which I just thought was so extraordinary, but obviously very, very different. So I was inspired by the idea that this wouldn't be fantastical. This would be very grounded, and that I could tell a very different story, something about a man that felt very true to the world in a lot of ways and how complicated our world is right now. And that he wasn't a character that everybody has seen a million depictions of, like people are familiar with him, but also there's a lot of room to explore a character like this without having so many comparisons.
True, true. But I already read that to mention that Robert does not have a cameo in the series. But there are still people who are expecting a cameo or at least a mention of the Batman. I'm sure mention would be there a couple of times, but just the cameo. Do you want to tell the fans that why there is no Batman in the series?
Well, we are following Oz and his world, and he's in the seedy underbelly. And the truth is that Gotham's a big city. The Batman can't be everywhere. But the most important thing is that we tell the stories of these characters in this show. And I understand the fan expectation or the hope that they would see the Batman. At the same time, I do feel strongly that our show stands on its own. And that once you get to know the characters and you follow Oz and Sophia and Francis and Victor, that you're going to want that less, that instead you're going to want to stay with our primary characters and dig deeper into them. That's my hope anyway. And that is the goal and what we kind of strove for.
Lovely. On that note, thank you so much, Lauren. Really looking forward to the Penguin. All the best.
Thank you.